Vast Resources is Andrew Prelaya. And from Botswana Diamonds, James Campbell. Andrew, James, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Nice to see you again.
Good to have you back. Look, Andrew, firstly, this acquisition. Why the Ghaghoo diamond mine? Tell us a bit about it. Why have you made the move?
Well, as you know, I mean, from Botswana Diamonds, of course, is that's their speciality in Botswana, and being diamonds, and James's esteemed background in the diamond space. James and I have been talking together now for over 3 years. We first started talking about the assets in Zimbabwe, and they're taking longer than expected, but we're still very confident that that will proceed. But we've also been talking about other opportunities to be able to work together long term, and from that, the opportunity in Ghaghoo came up. We've been discussing it now for a little over 12 months. I think it's about right, James, about 12 months. And very rarely do you get an opportunity to get a mine that's already pretty much fully established, that would generally take 10 years or so. James could talk to that a little bit better because he's the expert. That has close to $250 million of infrastructure and time that was spent. So it would take us at least 10 years to get to where we are today. And it's got a samarric resource of over 110 million ton, 110 million tons, over 20 million carats with a high grade carat per ton. And it was just an opportunity that we thought that would be a great starting point to work together between our diamond team that we're building and James's expertise in the industry and in the region. So that's why we decided to proceed together.
Well, James, tell us more here about the opportunity. What do you view as the real appeal of this mine?
Andrew, where this goes back to, as the other Andrew said about a year ago, is that when we announced our acquisition of Sakaka Diamonds, which included the KX36 discovery in the Central Kalahari, Jem and I had a telephone call about the strategic relationship between KX36 and Ghaghoo, which is only 60 kilometers away. And also that we are very heavily exploring in the Central Kalahari of Botswana, which is essentially the next frontier for diamond exploration in Southern Africa. And so it was almost a natural fit to take a look at Ghaghoo. And why Ghaghoo, and picking up on what Andrew said, is if I go back to our experiences with African diamonds and an AK6, which everybody knows about in Botswana and everyone knows about the world, and Lucara have done a fabulous job in making a lot of money for their shareholders on that, as we did with African diamonds. It took 10 years and $40 million before mining actually took place. So here was a project which had a SAMREC compliant report of over 80 million tons at above average $240 per carat, according to the SAMREC resource, where Jem had essentially de-risked it. They had spent $250 million. They built an underground mine. They had built a fantastic processing plant, and they had a camp infrastructure and had recovered over 150,000 carats. So essentially, what we're looking at here is we can fast track our process to bring something into production, which would normally take much, much longer and cost much more money. And because we'd already started those discussions with Vast in Zimbabwe, Vast was the natural partner to work with us in terms of developing this very exciting project.
Well, James, just on that, one might ask, given Gem's de-risked it, they've invested a good deal of cash into it, why would they be parting ways with this asset?
If you look at how De Beers parted ways with some of their assets, for example, Finch, Kimberley, Koffiefontein, and Cullinan, and there's a life cycle. If you look at any kind of mine as such, you typically have, with a big mine, the large majors and corporates who start off with it. Once it no longer fits their strategic portfolio, it then becomes the domain of the mid-tier companies. And then once it doesn't fit the portfolio of the mid-tier companies, it goes to the juniors. And everybody makes their money from it until the mine has actually been depleted or commercially non-viable. Letseng clearly focused on, Gem Diamonds are clearly focused on Letseng, which is producing absolutely fabulous diamonds from it. And this was no longer part of their strategic portfolio. And in fact, they did announce the disposal process about 3 years ago of Ghaghoo. And they did have somebody who wanted to acquire it, but sadly it kind of didn't work out. And maybe to preempt another question actually on that is, there are very, very few listed companies who are involved in diamond exploration and development in Southern Africa. There's Blue Rock Diamonds, the AIM-listed company in South Africa on the Carifle deposit, but they are very myopic on the Carifle deposit. And then in Botswana, aside from the big majors, I'm talking about the juniors here, you have Pangolin Diamonds, which is doing exploration, and Sodilo, which has got an advanced project. So there aren't many fish in the sea who are active in this project development space in diamonds at our kind of scale.
And also further to that, you've got to look at the dollar per bang for buck, as we like to say, in the diamond space. So if you look at the likes of Ghaghoo, where we can get into a near-term production, probably underground within 12 months, based on the feasibility study that we're going to be undertaking shortly. You've also got an advancement in technology, such as the Tom resorting equipment that we're now using in our Baitsa mine and test work on, in Baitsa and the test work on Manaila, where we're seeing some amazing recoveries and the sorting, which was originally developed for the diamond space. You then apply this to things like the dumps that can be probably, James, if I'm not mistaken, we could probably be in operation within 6 months on the dump reprocessing, where, you know, the setup of the DMS and the mills were not, let's say, ideal, where we can reprocess those dumps through the existing infrastructure by adding on more modern equipment than they had on site. We can look at some near-term cash generation from there while we're dewatering the underground and getting prepared to start mining in the underground areas where there's open faces ready to start production almost immediately once it's dewatered. And that's part of what we're doing probably over the course of the settlement period and the approvals periods. We'll start, you know, delving deeper into that possibility as well. So there's a lot, and also bear in mind that we've got different carrying costs to a mid-tier company like GEM, who have a larger corporate overhead and larger infrastructure cost. Then above and beyond that, we've got the likes of the power, which was a huge contributor. I think it was the largest cost for the mine itself, where, you know, with our connections with certain energy companies, we can provide a company that will bring in a solar plant of somewhere between 5 and 10 megawatts that will power the plant, reduce the cost significantly, I think by about 25–30%, as opposed to gen sets. And you've got the problem of transporting things like fuel. So there's a lot of things that we can do as a junior that they can't do as a mid-tier or a major miner that will reduce costs. And I think, I mean, James will probably be able to tell you where there have been turnaround projects where a major's gone in, they couldn't make it economically viable, the junior stepped in, changed the method of mining, changed the corporate costs and the carrying cost, and turned it into a profit centre.
Andrew, how much are you looking at here to restart, and what are your options?
I mean, to start with, first of all, there's the acquisition cost. We've set a benchmark of somewhere in the vicinity of $15 million, including the acquisition cost, to get restarted. There will be more money that will be required over time. We are talking to private equity funds and high net worths that have been interested in our Zimbabwe project for a while, that are willing to reallocate funding towards this project at the project level. So, you know, we're expecting somewhere in the vicinity of $15 million all in to get started. And then depending on the results we get, it may require, you know, up to 25 million over the next few years, but that will all be coming from third-party sources, not from VAST.
And James, as far as approvals and permits to get into mining, are all those in place, are they?
Andrew, in Botswana is the #1 mining destination in Africa. They call it the Switzerland of Africa. The rule of law is very clear. Unsurprisingly, GEM and Okwa have already started engagement with the Director of Mines and the Ministry in Botswana. But of course, they can't do anything until we'd signed the share purchase agreement and until we'd made the applications. And the two applications which we have already started with, and in fact, I started conversations with GEM on that yesterday afternoon in terms of completing, are firstly the competition authority to make sure we don't breach any kind of competition rules. And I'm confident that we won't. You know, we're far from being a monopoly in any shape or sense. And the second thing is what they call the Section 23 application, which is an application made to the Ministry of Mines, where they look at the technical and financial credibility and the plan of the potential acquirer, which is us. And with Botswana Diamonds having been listed in Botswana many years, and as Andrew mentioned, that I've been involved in Botswana for 30 years or thereabouts. We had African Diamonds, which was listed in Botswana for many years too, and made a lot of money for local shareholders. You know, we hope that those kind of credentials and the financial backing of VAST would be sufficient to actually pass those applications. And I think what is very important about that too as well is these regulatory applications won't go on ad infinitum. The Botswana authorities are very good, as long as you follow the process, which is absolutely right, of getting these done swiftly and efficiently.
And James, you're a man who knows a few things about diamonds. Why is this an attractive space to be in? What's the outlook?
Someone asked me, Andrew, the same question about this time last year, right in the middle of the bottom of the COVID pandemic. And my forecast then was that, yes, diamond prices have dropped 20 to 30%, which is completely unsurprisingly. If you go back into history, all the way through to the 1930s depression, the Spanish flu, the global financial crisis, you name it, diamonds drop in price very fast because it's a sentiment-driven product. But I also mentioned at that same interview, which is on record, that once the pandemic had started to move away, particularly from the developed world, where most of the diamonds get sold, diamonds would come back hard and fast. The interviewer asked why. I said, well, people are still getting engaged. They're still getting married. They still want to celebrate, you know, their love for each other. And what better way of doing it than buying a diamond? So what did we see? We saw fantastic sales. In the United States between Thanksgiving and Christmas, where about 25 to 30% of world diamond sales actually take place. And what we've seen going beyond that is we've seen a steady increase in rough diamond prices, because that's after all what we're selling. We're saying selling rough diamond prices. And I think what is particularly important, and Andrew mentioned this in his introduction about Ghaghoo, because it's not every diamond mine which you can actually focus on. And one of our strategic focuses here is to focus on diamond mines which have well above average dollar per carat. And so the diamonds are good quality, and you have fancy diamond stones too as well. And this one has oranges and blues. And why is that? And that's because of the threat of synthetics. Synthetics have come in basically at the bottom end of the market and have overtaken to a large degree the cheaper and the smaller stones. So if you're in a natural diamond business which has an abundance of those, it's the wrong business to be in. But when you're focusing on the higher end, which obviously attracts a higher net worth individual and somebody who wants to celebrate their love buying a natural stone, they're not going to go and buy a synthetic, because how on earth can you celebrate something which is the ultimate human emotion by buying something which is artificial? It just doesn't make sense.
Well said.
Sorry, got a bit passionate there.
No, that's fine. That's fine with me.
And Andrew, some might question, is this going to be a distraction for you from Baita?
No, not at all. I mean, we've developed a diamond team, which is still further developing, and we'll talk to that later on in the week. And we've put on a new board, an NED, who comes from the diamond background. We are growing the business in the diamond space, so the management crossover is almost zero. There's going to be no effect on our Romanian operations and in the non-ferrous space and the expansion of that. This is a separate business and will be treated as such, and we're happy to have James with us to assist and to drive this project, which is extremely important. And as I said, we are equipping the team further, which will be, there'll be harmony there between us. And something that James just mentioned as well, as far as the funding is concerned, when you look at the difference between jurisdictions, and Botswana being, as James said, the Switzerland of Africa, we found that there is a lot more interest in the funding potential and possibilities within Botswana which will make life a lot easier for FAST to get access to the funding to make sure that this thing completes and moves forward.
So, Andrew, a final word then, just what's your timing around completion of this deal and what are the next steps?
I mean, that's all in the hands of the Botswana government. We anticipate it'll be towards the end of the year. It may drag into early next year because sometimes bureaucracy takes over, as we've seen in other jurisdictions. As soon as that's completed, we'll be able to move forward. But we've already started in the financing arrangements. We hope to have it in line with the timing from the Botswana government giving all the approvals. But in the meantime, we'll be working on the test work in the dumps, and we'll be working on the feasibility to be able to commence near-term production as fast as possible.
Andrew, James, thanks very much. Good to see you both.
Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Andrew.